It's Monday, the 14th of August, 2023. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and Sean Aylmer is still away. I'm joined instead by Jennifer Duke. Jen, good morning.
Good morning, Michael.
We've got 5 stories to get through in 5 minutes, so let's jump straight in. Jen, story number 1 is an absolute cracker. I think everybody was watching this over the weekend. The Matildas have broken a raft of records on the weekend, and the possibility of a Women's World Cup win is causing a little bit of tension in Canberra.
That's right. Saturday night's penalty shootout win against France was the most watched sports event in more than 20 years. That's since Kathy Freeman's Sydney Olympics 400-metre final. Over 4.2 million Australians watched the broadcast on Channel 7, according to ratings agency Oztam. Another 472,000 of us tuned in on 7 Plus afterwards. 7 pushed back its bulletin by an hour to accommodate the game, and they bought the sub-licence rights to 15 matches off of Optus for just over $4 million, according to The Australian, which is a pretty good deal.
That is an amazing deal. So what's next? What happens now?
The Matildas will head to their first ever World Cup semi-final and play against England on Wednesday. And if they win, Euromonitor International has forecast they'll be in a World Cup match watched by more than 2 billion broadcast viewers worldwide. And Airwallex Global Accountants estimates the World Cup has driven a $7.6 billion economic boost to retail and travel industries.
All right, that all sounds like good news. Let's get to the controversy. Why has this all been so controversial?
Well, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese is eager for a public holiday if the Dream Team wins the World Cup on August 20, but the Council of Small Business Owners of Australia is concerned about its members needing to stump up the extra cash for penalty rates. The Prime Minister reckons public holidays lead to more economic activity and that benefits businesses. But ultimately, it's all up to state and territory leaders. They're going to be discussing it as one of their discussion points at National Cabinet on Wednesday in Brisbane. New South Wales Premier Chris Minns has already indicated that he would be supportive, but Victoria's Dan Andrews has been a little bit more on the fence.
All right, we will wait and see in that case. All right, on to story number 2. Residential property activity picked up over the weekend with 1,911 homes heading to auction and sales holding up pretty well.
Yeah, it was a very busy weekend, much busier than the week before when 1,746 homes went under the hammer. It was also significantly up year on year. 1,611 homes were up for auction a year ago. The preliminary clearance rate was pretty consistent week on week, though, around 71% nationally on CoreLogic figures. In Sydney, of 772 auctions, 3 out of 4 sold, and in Melbourne, just under 70% of homes sold at auction.
All right, on to story number 3 now. And the Indigenous voice to Parliament is continuing to divide the Liberal Party, with New South Wales Liberal leader Mark Speakman declaring that he will vote in favour of the voice to Parliament.
Speakman said the potential rewards of the voice outweigh the risks, and he reflected that poor outcomes for Indigenous Australians are the nation's biggest policy failure. His position is in direct contradiction with the leader of the federal opposition, Peter Dutton, but the New South Wales opposition is not making it mandatory for MPs to take any particular position.
There are a few other big Liberal figures that are also supporting the voice.
That's right. Tasmanian Premier Jeremy Rockliff is supporting, as is ACT opposition leader Elizabeth Lee. It's unclear how the Victorian Liberal leader is planning to vote, but in general, the Liberals oppose a referendum but are supportive of a legislated local and regional voice as an alternative. But over the weekend, Nationals leader David Littleproud said he wouldn't support a legislated voice.
Yeah, that is starting to get very messy. On to story number 4. Investments in artificial intelligence are forecast to reach $200 billion worldwide by 2025. This is according to new research from Goldman Sachs.
The investments are likely to be so significant that the Global Investment Bank reckons it will surpass the impact of electricity and computers on economic growth. In the US, those two technologies led to a 2% increase in GDP. Goldman Sachs researchers expect generative AI to boost global labour productivity by more than 1 percentage point in the decade after its use becomes widespread.
Yeah, this is going to be huge, Jen. I was reading that in the long term, they estimate AI investment could rise to be as much as 2.5% of GDP in some major leading economies.
Yeah, and half of that $200 billion worth of expected investment is likely to be in the US on their estimates. But they did warn of over-enthusiasm in markets leading to overpaying, similar to the 1990s dot-com bubble. So Aussie investors, be very careful.
Yeah, it's a very good reminder to make sure you get professional advice before you make investment decisions. On to story number 5 now. New Zealand's biggest businesses will be forced to reveal their gender pay gap in a bid to tackle inequality.
This new legislation from the New Zealand government is kicking off with businesses who employ 250 or more people. So that's about 900 companies who'll be required to report. It's then going to be expanded to all businesses with 100 or more staff, and that will capture about 2,700 firms. This will bring them in line with Australia, Canada, and the UK. At the moment, only about 200 private companies over the ditch voluntarily report their pay gap or plan to do so.
Is the timing of this complicated at all? Because there's an election there this year, isn't there?
Yeah, there is an election there, and the Kiwis are heading to the polls in October. So this will require the Labor government to be re-elected or to get bipartisan support on the issue. And current New Zealand Prime Minister Chris Hipkins has also promised to exempt fruit and veg from GST if Labor wins a third term.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks so much.
It's Monday, the 14th of August, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed Business News, wherever you listen to podcasts. And that one comes with a bunch of interviews as well. Today's interview is a fantastic one for investors. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.